The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
Lawyers for Twitter are now calling Elon Musk backing out of the social media company acquisition invalid and wrongful as Twitter falls over 11% yesterday. Joining us now is Angelo Zeno, senior equity analyst at the independent investment research firm CFRA. So let's get right into this. This sort of Elon Musk drama just seems to never end. Let's just not talk about him for a second, actually, because I'm so tired of talking about him. What do you see happening from here? I mean, let's just assume, okay, Elon's out of it, right? So what's going to happen with Twitter? What is your sort of short-term prediction for Twitter getting out of this mess?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think as far as Twitter is concerned, clearly they're going to be, busy in the courts here over the next kind of 12 to 18 months at least, right? So we're going to have to see how all that plays out. But I think, definitely kind of Elon Musk has kind of thrown out a lot of uncertainties within their ecosystem, whether it be kind of related to, what's going on, I'd say specifically what's going on in terms of their strategic direction here. And it's coming at an absolutely horrible time because we're, embarking on kind of an economic downturn in many respects, at the very least, an advertising market that's kind of lost its luster and likely going to see some declines over the next kind of, call it 6 to 9 months. And, on top of that, Elon Musk clearly has opened a Pandora's box in terms of the bot situation. And, the bot situation has been an issue for years for Twitter. In fact, it's actually been an issue for the entire ecosystem of social media companies now for the longest time. But the fact that it's kind of front and center here for Twitter specifically, I think is very worrisome for many out there that have been believers in the Twitter story. Now, as you kind of look forward, what do they need to do? I think there is a lot that they need to do. But there's a lot of pressure really here from the board. But I think that they need to somehow start thinking a little bit more about, more subscription type of offerings. And they are starting to do that a little bit. They're toying around with it in terms of Twitter Blue. But I think, Musk did have a point there. But at the end of the day, this is a company that has just failed to monetize their platform. They just don't have the engagement levels there that the way that other social media platforms have. So that there really needs to be a strategic change there that the board of directors really needs to work on.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the question, right? Like, is there going to be, Elon brought a lot of drama. I guess the one thing he did bring was, as you said, he opened a Pandora's box and raised a lot of questions, some of which are very relevant to the crypto industry specifically, not only the bot question, but also the freedom of speech question, right? I mean, now there's like all these big questions out there. Everybody is debating the future of Twitter. So once Elon is out of the picture, do you see there being momentum on these issues to really change things? I mean, it's because he was going to go in and apparently radically change some rules about freedom of speech, bring Donald Trump back, all this stuff. I mean, do you see that momentum continuing in the absence of such a kind of charismatic figure?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first point to make, right, is Elon Musk isn't necessarily out of the picture. We don't necessarily know if he's going to completely be out of the picture at this point in time. We still give about a 20% probability that maybe something happens here with Elon Musk. But it's also important to note that this guy still has a 9% stake in the company, right? In terms of his total wealth, that's not a ton of money, but still, I mean, he has a considerable say in terms of what's going to happen to Twitter in the future. Whether or not he decides to % stake, I think remains to be seen. But nonetheless, he does have a voice within the company as we sit here today, and a very important voice. Now, you kind of look going forward, what do they need to do? I mean, I think they kind of really need to sit at the table and think about a lot of opportunities. Whether it be freedom of speech, I don't know if that's necessarily the content moderation is the actual path forward, because that's going to disturb a lot of advertisers out there, and that's 90% of their business. So I think there needs to kind of be a fine line there. I think there are potential opportunities out there, whether we're talking about opportunities related to cryptocurrencies out there, which is something that Elon Musk was definitely a proponent of. E-commerce capabilities. But really the bigger problem here for Twitter and the real uncertainty is the fact that they don't have those engagement levels and the user growth that other platforms have out there. And I don't know how they answer that that question. I don't know if they're capable of doing that, to be honest with you. And some of the assumptions that Elon Musk has thrown out there in terms of potentially getting to 1 billion users out there, personally, I don't know if there's any for that company to get there the way it's currently constituted. And maybe it means a white knight potentially kind of get in there at some point in time. But as far as the management team is constructed right now and the path Twitter is headed to, I don't see kind of a path towards getting to where they need to be.
Does Twitter have an interest in really stamping out the bots, though? In a lot of cases, the clout of certain users, publishers, for example, and influencers is based on, in many cases, purchasing secretively or otherwise, purchasing those bots to like their pages, and that influences their position and therefore their economy on Twitter. And likewise, those bots also have been out there promoting cryptocurrencies. One can argue even that Luna was hyped in a large degree because of bots on Twitter. That's a different story. But does Twitter have any interest, and other social media platforms such as Facebook have any interest at all in stopping the bots? Or is it just a lost cause? I mean, is Elon Musk just basically exposing something, but ultimately something that these companies don't really want to stop?
Well, listen, I do think Elon's got a case in the sense that there have, from what we've heard, there have been other firms out there, specifically a company like a Meta, that have invested more in terms of kind of trying to capture or kind of minimize some of the bot issues out there relative to a Twitter. So you always kind of look at Twitter saying, hey, listen, have they done as much as they possibly could relative to others in the industry? And I think that's really the black eye as far as Twitter is concerned. Now, as kind of, as far as kind of the importance of kind of tackling the bot situation, I do think, especially now with kind of the Musk situation at hand and what he's really kind of held to many advertisers out there, it is an absolutely important issue to kind of address and try to minimize, because this is an environment that's only going to get a lot more competitive in nature, not only within the social media space, but there are going to be a lot more advertising opportunities out there across different platforms. I mean, look at a company like Uber, right? I mean, they're going to look to increase advertising opportunities on their platform because of all the eyes within their ecosystem. And that's just one example. There are going to be a ton of opportunities out there. Netflix kind of turning into more of an ad-based platform, but advertisers are going to have a lot more opportunities out there. So if these companies can't kind of try to start minimizing or at least try to address some of the bot issues out there, it becomes a big problem for them, and advertisers are going to look for elsewhere. So I do think it is an issue that's at least going to need to be addressed, or at least, an increased amount of money is going to need to go towards these efforts.
Well, the latest news is that Twitter is saying Musk's request to terminate the purchase agreement is invalid. So I wonder how you expect to see this play out, keeping in mind that our audience is really interested in finding out about how much of Twitter's user base is bots, fake users, and what do the computer algorithms play in promoting tweets and shadow bans even. Will that information come to light in the ensuing legal battle?
Listen, I think when we kind of look at the numbers here, I mean, we've seen regulatory files every single quarter from Twitter in terms of the fact that they believe no more than 5% of the total kind of user base is driven on fake bots. Now, how they're going to be able to actually quantify that number, I think remains to be seen. I think they've done a lot of work on there. That's going to come out in the courts to an extent. Whether or not kind of the courts out there believe that's valid and whether those numbers are believable, I think remains to be seen. I don't think anyone's actually going to get a clear-cut answer when all said and is done. When this case is over with. And again, it has been an issue that's well known across the industry now for years. So I think you're going to get a lot more information from Twitter once this case is over on how they've kind of approached the process. But I don't know if we're going to all get the answers that we want to hear from this case.